barking, ambulances, things of that nature. Everyone here is laughing, but we've heard all of those that I've mentioned. Anyways, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Tournament registration opened this morning. It was a fun couple hours for us in here, but everything is working now. So if you have people or you yourself are playing, make sure you can sign up for those events. So we have jobs to do during come the summer. And then also I think yesterday, possibly, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, but the USGA and the RNA released a 112-page report or something about their part one of their distance research. And I haven't read it through yet, but I know that I'm going to get like 7,000 questions on Friday about it, so I'm going to have to read it before then. But I don't know if anyone here read it or... Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jim, did you read it or?
I read the 15 pages.
Okay. So what was the general synopsis?
That they should do some, well, it's a first step towards saying you should do something about it. That the distance is getting to be too much.
Getting to be too much, yeah.
Made the point that, you know, they haven't increased the length of swimming pools.
Right. The baseball fields haven't expanded, or basketball courts and whatever. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Well, it'll be. I mean, it's funny because on one end they say that, and then on the other end, whenever you go to their championships, it just seems to get longer and longer and longer.
Well, and there's been some commentary in the last 24 hours about is their ultimate goal, and they especially say they don't have an ultimate goal. This is just the first step.
Right.
Bifurcating.
Right.
I mean, my own courses are great. We're landlocked. We just blew the course up and did it over and told the architect, get us as much distance as you can, and the best he could do was just over 7,000 yards. Now, we were good enough to host 4 Motor City Opens and a PGA National Championship.
Right.
Wouldn't host anything. I mean, when our guys were there, we were amateurs.
Right. Yeah, it was like 10 under or something like that. Yeah. So that was partly because I set it up. But
somehow they hosted a Ryder Cup.
Right.
It's landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't do something, these great venerable courses around the country are going to be obsolete.
Right.
Yeah, but doesn't the report also say that the vast majority of golfers play on courses that are too long for them?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the balance, is getting people to tee it forward and not be ashamed of playing the red tees and I mean, you see it a lot of courses. Like I just got a call from Edgewood the other day, and they've, red used to be their forward tee, or gold and red, and now they got rid of red. So now the forward tee I think is green there. And I mean, I'm sure there still won't be a ton of play from there, but if that makes a 75-year-old guy, feel better about himself going to play those tees, then why not, right? So,
75-year-old guy.
Yeah. 85-year-old guy.
The other comment was that even though some of the forward tees are too long for the people that are playing, that they keep backing everything up, and I thought that was an interesting comment.
Yeah.
One of the talking heads was saying they should go back to what it originally was at 12 holes, because it's not only that it's too long, but it takes too much time. If they want more people to play,
Right.
Maybe they should back it down to 12 holes.
Yeah. We'll see. I think there's a lot of discussion. There'll probably be a ton of discussion and very little done. But we'll see. It's a good initiative that those governing bodies are taking, and hopefully for us in our courses, we can use some of that insight that they've gathered based on the data. All right. Enough about that. Let's get into Rule 5 here. All right, so Rule 5, we're going to talk a lot of fairly basic stuff today, but some things that do happen quite a bit. some things we hope never happen in terms of delaying play. So first off, I always start off with these purpose statements for the rules. So playing the round, Rule 5 covers how to play a round, such as where and when a player may practice on the course before or during a round, when a round starts and ends, and what happens when play has to stop or resume. So the players are expected to start on time, play continuously and at a prompt pace. And then when this is new for 2019, when it's a player's turn to play, it is recommended that he or she make the stroke in no more than 40 seconds, and usually more quickly than that. And we've adopted that in our pace of play policy. That's our set time for a shot, 40 seconds. And we do want people to play, quicker than that when they can. All right, so the round itself, so this round, or used to be called stipulated round, is now just called a round. Now it used to be 18 holes. Now it's 18 or fewer holes played in the order set by the committee. So you might have some courses that will combine nines or combine certain holes, like the Detroit Golf Club did for the Rocket Mortgage. They use parts of both courses. But that committee defines what 18 holes will be the holes that we'll play. And then in terms of when there's a winner, we don't need to really go into this, but it's pretty straightforward. But one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that, especially in stroke play, when we start a playoff, this is going to be a new round. So in terms of, replacing clubs or using clubs that have been damaged, those are things that change from one to the other. So we talked about last week clubs. So if I break my putter shaft, or I bend it, I don't break it, and it's crooked, I can keep using that through the end of the round. But if I go into a playoff in stroke play and I use that putter, then we've got an issue, because that's a new round. But if it's a match play, that round keeps going if we're playing beyond 18 holes. Okay, and then the other thing too is that the round is not if we have play that is suspended, that's not part of the round during that suspension. So that's more common for like advice. So you'll see, like during a rain delay or something like that, players or caddies will be talking to each other. They can talk about anything at that point, because it's not advice while we're suspended. All right, 5.2. Practicing on course before or between rounds. So key there, before, between rounds. So practicing means playing a ball, testing the surface of the putting green on any hole by rolling a ball or rubbing the surface. And the limitations apply to the player, but not to the caddy. So people often ask, well, why would it not apply to the caddy? Or if it doesn't apply to the caddy, how come there aren't 144 caddies out getting notes when play's going on? And there's no rule against it, but it's very it's frowned upon, I guess is the right way to say it, and that there's rules in place that the tour will kick out the caddies that do that. So again, no rule, but it's heavily frowned upon, and those caddies will be asked to leave the premises if they do certain things like that. So if they have an afternoon tea time and they go out in the morning and try to take notes, there's nothing that's going to penalize the player, but the tour is going to ask them to leave and not caddy. But match play is a completely different animal in terms of practice. A player may practice in match play on the course before a round or between rounds of a match play competition. And in stroke play, the player cannot practice on the course before a round, except that the player may practice putting or chipping on or near his or her first tee area and practice on any practice area. So obviously we know about the practice area, that makes sense. But the other thing too is that, let's say you got a shotgun and you get all the players out there and the player starts, chipping balls near the, on his tee that he's about to start on. That's fine. And likewise, if I'm starting on number 1 and I'm near the putting green and hitting a few putts before the horn goes off, that's fine too. But as soon as the horn goes off, then the players need to start playing. And then a player may practice on the course after completing play of his or her final round for that day. But you need to be careful, and I'm sure some of you saw this in that quiz that Mick sent out a few weeks ago or in January about what happens when someone practices after the round but then has to go out in a playoff. And there's a interpretation on that. And basically, if I remember correctly, that golfer lose in match play. They lose the first. It's a loss of hole penalty, and stroke play be a 2-stroke penalty. Correct? Yep.
Is it a playoff a new round?
It is. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But he's still penalized.
You can't practice between rounds.
Correct.
Same day.
Yeah, sorry. So take that back. Match play. No, so
Okay.
match play is you're good. Match play, you're good. Stroke play, it'd be a 2-stroke penalty.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Unless you violated this rule earlier in the round, in which case the penalty is disqualified.
During the round. Right. Yep. Yeah, this is talking about after the round here. All right, and then the committee can, however, put in a local rule prohibiting, restricting, or allowing practice on the course before or between rounds. So this is on page 502. And basically, we don't do this at the GAM, but there was discussion about it at one point in time last year, doing it, and even doing it for certain events as well. So, one common example is our mid-am that we do up at Boyne for the men, allowing players to practice between rounds at the next course they're going to play. It does help the players out, but it also helps the golf course out. So that might be a scenario where we would allow it, even though the rules say that we can't. We would just put a local rule in to allow it. We don't in that case because we don't want to give the players that play that have a 7:30 tee time an advantage over ones that have a 12:30 time. And then if you breach Rule 5.2, that first time it'll be a general penalty, and the second time will be a disqualification. So you can do it once, but on that second time, you're going to be disqualified. So, Jim, in your case there, we'd have a 2-stroke penalty the first time and then a DQ.
You know what I'm thinking about though? It's the last one about it's a new round. Let's say you practiced on the course before your first 15 holes.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in the playoff, new round. If you practice there, is that your second or your first?
I see what you're saying. I think that'd be the first because it's a new round.
And Jeannie, am I not right? In the old rules, violation is if let's say you're on the first tee, you hit 2 strokes. It's disqualification, right? If you're practicing before the round, each stroke is
Actually, hit 2 strokes. What do you mean, tee up 2 balls?
yeah, just for practice before the round begins.
Yeah.
At least in the old book, that's right. 2 strokes, you're out.
Right. Yep. And that's what it is now, right? So here we got the first breach is 2. So if you hit 2 practice shots, he or she would be DQ'd after that second one. I don't hit practice shots in the first tee. I just hit provisionals, and I tell myself that they're practice shots.
Line.
Yep. Right. I don't know. My ball usually is in play, but I usually want to get a couple more swings in, so provisional. Yeah.
By itself.
All right. So when to start a round? So the player starts their round when the player makes a stroke. Okay, and then in terms of starting time, I think we all understand this, but especially for those of you that start, important to know that it's very strict on when we're starting in terms of time. So you see here that if your tee time is 9 a.m., it's 9 a.m. in 0 seconds, not 9 a.m. in 1 second or 9:01. It's very, very strict. Now, when you're starting and someone's running up to the table and it's 9 o'clock and 17 seconds, by the book, Mick would want you to DQ him, but other people might be a little more lenient. However, there's certain circumstances. I shouldn't say DQ. They just get a two-stroke penalty or loss of hole. But so use your judgment. But if it's a big event, we really want to be by the book. That if it's a junior qualifier and this kid is probably running late because his brother threw up on the ride to the course, we're not going to give the kid a two-stroke penalty because he was there 17 seconds late. And just let him go, tell him he needs to get there on time. And
going to the wrong tee happens a lot with the junior.
Yeah, going to the wrong tee.
You're calling him when he's running.
Yeah.
On the cart path, crying.
I mean, my thought is that if they're making an effort, then I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But going to the wrong tee, as you'll see here, is that, I mean, that's the player's responsibility. So they need to be there, and they need to know what tee they're playing from. And we're considering. I have a few ideas on what I'd like to do to make that not happen as much, but we'll see if we can get those in.
So if they cry, you absolve them. If they don't cry,
no, I think it's more the crying isn't the important part. It's the running. If they're running to the tee, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. But if they're walking like nothing's the matter, then
the attitude, then you can
stroke them. Yeah.
So they're running and crying
I mean, crying. They could be crying, or
crying in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, if they're crying, they can get the penalty. Yeah.
You knew that one was coming.
Yeah, but and then Mike, to your point here, this starting point that they reference is that first or 10th hole, or if we're doing a shotgun around somewhere where we're getting ready to go, or the hole that they're starting on. So we want to make sure that players are on time. We want to, and this is my personal opinion, that in terms of starting on time. In terms of starting on time, I mean, being on time and showing up on time is a life skill. So especially with the juniors, like my preference would be to not call them to the tee. That they need to learn to show up on time. They need to learn to be there. We tell them multiple times that they need to be there 10 minutes before, and we're doing them a disservice by yelling out, 8:10, come to the tee now. They need to learn that, and this is a great opportunity for them to learn it. You're not going to stand there and let someone get DQ'd if you see them on the putting green, but that's their responsibility. John.
Here's what Mike said. Let's say you're playing in your men's invitational, your ladies invitational, and it's a shotgun start, and you're on 16, and the buzzer goes off. You're standing with your partner. The other two guys aren't there. You wait 5 minutes before you tee off.
Up to you.
Yeah.
And then if I tee off and my partner tees off, we get in the fairway. These guys still aren't there. What happens to them?
Well, I mean,
Call your pro.
I think I mean, to your, yeah, to your question about, if you're there playing an invite and you're out in shotgun or whatever, I mean, you can't start right away. You could also wait 5 minutes for them to show up and then go. But in terms of the actual rules, that they technically have up to 5 minutes to show before they DQ. I don't think there's a single pro in the state of Michigan that would DQ a member for showing up late. They might get them two strokes if yeah, exactly. Not one that wants to have a job. But technically by the rules, yeah, if they're not there within 5 minutes and ready to play, then they would be DQ'd. If they show up within 5 minutes, they get 2 strokes. But I don't even think the pros would have the what to do that. So
What does the GAM do?
We'll probably give them 2 strokes unless there's, I mean, there's all these things that could happen. I don't know if you've ever been to Oak Point, but like if you go out to the champ course on Oak Point, like, I mean, that's just a maze. So you could start on 13 and take 13 minutes to get out there because you got to check all 13 holes to find out what hole you're on. So I mean, there's things like that. But if you're a member at the club, you should know where every hole is at, hopefully. But so, there's certain things. Maybe someone stopped and they got, they had to go to the bathroom or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Unless it's really, really bad and they purposely did it and there's no excuse, then we would probably do something. But if they're a minute late because they stopped at the bathroom, we're not gonna do anything for that. Usually our shotgun events are like prestigious ones that were, like a 1 in 10 or a single T start or whatever. So again, the penalty for not being there within 5 minutes is disqualification. If the player's there within 5 minutes, they're only going to get a 2-stroke or a general penalty in match play. And then there's also this exceptional circumstances that the book defines and also certain scenarios where they may be absolved from penalty. So that's on page 77.
You skipped over that little paragraph, which I think anybody that starts needs to read. Because it says if the guy is late to the tee, but you look out there.
Oh, yes, I do need to read that. You're right. Yes.
I mean, that's really a pretty
Yes.
thing for
Yes.
starters.
Yeah. So this sentence here right below the second bullet point, if starting time is delayed for any reason, so if we have a weather delay or the group in front of them had to come back to the tee, if they get to the tee and they're late, if the fairway's not clear, they're not going to get a penalty. So the fairway has to be clear to play. And the group ahead of them needs to be out of the way in order for them to actually get a penalty. So you could show up in theory, 10 minutes late, but be okay, depending on what happens in front of you. All right, so there on page 77, I actually go over to 78. There's a few examples here. So the couple that they put in this interpretation, the player was present at the scene of an accident and provided medical assistance or was required to give a statement as a witness. So if you're a smart player and you're running late, that's what you're going to tell us. There was a fire alarm at the player's hotel, and he or she must evacuate. So if you're running late, just pull the fire alarm, etc. And then some circumstances that would not generally be considered exceptional include that the player gets lost trying to find the tee, or yeah, exactly, or their car breaks down, or there's just traffic. So unless you're Roy McIlroy and you get a police escort from the Chicago airport, or his hotel or whatever it was, wherever he's coming from. Traffic isn't an excuse. So I mean, we get that call at least once or twice a year. Hey, traffic's bad. I'm running late. I think players now, they just know that they need to get there at least an hour early, and they just assume that they're going to have some traffic, and that if they do get in traffic, hopefully it doesn't take more than an hour. But yeah, if it's traffic related, that player doesn't show up, then unfortunately they're DQ'd. There's really nothing we can do about it. The other thing, there's another interpretation on page 78 too that talks about what it means to be ready to play. So when you get to that starting point, you need to have everything ready to go. You can't just be there without your clubs or whatever, your caddies 5 minutes away. You need to be there with your clubs, with your ball, with your driver, or whatever you're going to hit, ready to go and play.
Eight club and eight ball. I mean,
Correct.
It could be a 600-yard par five.
Sure.
If you got your putter, you pass their muster.
Sure.
It must be at least one club and a ball.
Right.
So if a player is if the group is there and they're the first player to tee off on a tee sheet is only there with a putter and a ball, there's a caddy's running, he's still back there. Should the starter alter the starting arrangement or starting order for that player's caddy to get up there?
No, they should tell the player to tee up his putter
Yeah.
and try to hit it.
And get their phone out and video it.
Yeah. and
You got 50 seconds.
You got 50 seconds, buddy.
call over everyone over the radio to go over there as soon as possible to see it. Yeah. No, you're. I mean, you're right though. Yeah. I mean, in that case, you're not going to alter the starting order if they're not ready to play. If they're the first up on the list, they go first. Yeah. The other thing too that we didn't really talk about, but in terms of if you are starting, and you've got your 10-minute spiel to go over, you don't need to wait for all three players to get there. It's the players. It's their responsibility to be there. And if you got 5 minutes worth of talking to do, you don't need to wait before 5 minutes. Start at whatever 10 minutes before. And if they missed it, that's their own fault. And what I do is I just give them the sheet and say, good luck today. And make sure you're there, because I'm not going to go over anything again. And, I hope internally, I tell myself, I hope they get a penalty so that they learn to be there on time. But usually that doesn't happen. So.
He likes the junior, but not that.
Tough.
Oh, I do.
Tough just a 12-year-old.
Just a
Yeah.
junior.
Just a 52-year-old that he has.
Yeah. I'm okay with the 75-year-olds that play the red tees.
Yeah.
75.
Huh?
There's people that are 69 in there. I don't know why he jumped all the way to 75.
It's a good number. All right. All right. So when the round ends, and obviously in match play, we're going to end when the result of the match is decided. In stroke play, when that player holds out in the final hole, including if they need to correct a mistake that they made, that they have to go back and finish, whether that's playing from the wrong place or teeing outside of a teeing area or something like that. And then you also, this statement in blue here, we'll see this a couple times today, but this just talks about all these scenarios where we're talking with partner play and how things change slightly based on when the round starts or when it ends when we have partners, especially when it comes to match play as well. That will be a lot different than actual stroke play for these partner games. We probably won't get to the partner games, but we don't do a ton of that. All right, so this is straightforward as well. So playing in groups, the groups are going to be set by the committee, and they're going to need to play in that group. Shockingly, in match play, the player and the opponent must play each hole with each other. They can't play it on separate times or whatever. On a side note about that, though, there's Just a couple of years ago, the USGA, they had I think maybe it was them that did it, or it was an article, but there was like these like matches and that were being played, but it was not like on the same. I don't know how they did it, but it was like, me playing some course somewhere and you playing another course 100 miles away or whatever, and still being able to I don't remember exactly how they did it, but it was an interesting concept. So I don't remember how they made it work, but it was interesting.
Was this a dream or was this actually?
No, I think it was like maybe they had like found courses that were exactly rated the exact same or something like that, or they found a way to adjust it, or maybe they just said, hey, it's like Gene and I playing, Gene playing the green tees and me playing the white tees. They're really two different golf courses when it comes to rating. So why would it not be, two different locations?
At least the bars are the same usually,
Yeah.
but not if you're in a different state.
Well, yeah. Back then, par didn't matter though. All
I'm
right.
gonna beat you when I'm playing a 3 and you're playing a 5.
You're gonna beat me anytime we play. So. All right, practicing during the round or while play is stopped. So while playing a hole, a player must not practice stroke at any ball on or off the course. However, these are not practice strokes. So a practice swing made with no intent to strike a ball. Hitting a ball back to a practice area. So we've all walked by the hole that has the driving range balls on, and we whack the balls back to the driving range to help get them out of play. That's not a stroke. Unless we're intentionally trying to hit a practice shot by doing that. So if we put our bag down and we take our stance and we take a nice swing and we want to hit a practice shot to hit it back to the range, that's an issue. But if we're just slapping it there or whatever, that's not a problem.
Yeah, if you leave that second one out, the difference is, are you swinging at a ball? And the ball can be a little plastic wiffle ball. That's a practice. If you're swinging at a ball, that's a practice stroke. If you're swinging at a tee or the leaf of a weed, but you're still trying to groove your swing, that's a practice swing, and that's fine. But the difference, except for that middle one, is are you swinging at a ball of some nature?
So you put an acorn on the tee, get a tee and put an acorn on it.
I think that's fine.
It's fine.
On the other hand, I wasn't on the rules committee.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're talking about a golf ball here, or a ball. So, and then strokes made by the player in playing out a hole whose result has been decided does not count as well. So we know in match play, commonly that after the hole is halved or the player loses the hole because they missed a putt, they'll rake the putt back and they'll try it again. That's fine. However, between two holes, the player must not practice a stroke, with the exception of if they're allowed to practice putting or chipping on the green that they just finished up, or the tee where they're going to go forward before they get started on the next hole.
So Kyle,
Yeah.
with that, it's allowed unless there's a local rule saying it's not?
For practice between holes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. So it would have to be like a local rule for that particular tournament or something saying it was
Right.
not
Yeah.
allowed.
And typically most organizations won't put a local rule in, but it'll be, the way that you can enforce it without putting a local rule is just to, issue a pace of play warning, or say, hey, you need to move and not hold up the group behind you. And by practicing on the green behind, where the green you just finished on, you're doing that. So that would be one way to get around that without putting a local rule in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. But these strokes can't be made from a bunker, and like we were just talking about, must not unreasonably delay play. So I can't sit there and hit 100 practice putts while the group behind me is sitting there waiting for me to get off the green. And then, as we were talking about too, and Lori asked about, so that local rule, if you want to put a local rule to prohibit practice between holes, you can do that. All right. Practice while play is suspended or otherwise stop while play is suspended. Player must not make a practice stroke except as allowed in Rule 5.5b or anywhere outside the course or anywhere on the course that the committee allows. So when we suspend play, we also suspend all the practice areas. We will, sorry, when we suspend play because it's dangerous out, we will also, turn off all the practice areas as well. At some point in time, if it's been a long delay, we may allow the players to go back and warm up again. At that point, we would make an announcement to say that the practice facilities are open. But if we have a lightning delay or a weather delay, those practice facilities are closed and we're taking people off those practice facilities. You could have the same thing before a round starts too, like we had at the state finals last year, the girls' state finals at East course. There was a frost delay. I mean, the frost was like an inch thick, and there was this coach and the kid on the putting green hitting putts. It's like, what are you doing? But anyways, that would be another scenario where we don't want players on the practice facilities. And then let's see here. If a match is stopped by agreement of the players and will not be resumed the same day, the players may practice on the course without restriction before the match is resumed. If we do have a breach, it's going to be a 2-stroke or a general penalty. And if the breach happens between the play of 2 holes, the penalty applies to the next hole. All right, next one here, unreasonable delay. So what was these used to be called undue delay? Is that what they call it? Right. So a player must not unreasonably delay play either when playing a hole or between 2 holes. There's an interpretation 5.6a/1, page 83. That talks about some examples that would be reasonable and some that would not be reasonable. So some reasonable ones: briefly stopping by the clubhouse or halfway house to get food or drink or go to the bathroom, taking time to consult with others and playing group to decide whether to play out the hole. Actions that are not or that would be treated as unreasonably delaying play would be returning to the teeing area from the putting green to retrieve a lost club, continuing to search for a lost ball for several minutes after the allowed 3-minute search time has expired, or stopping by the clubhouse or halfway house to get food and drink for more than a few minutes if the committee has not allowed for it. So if you go and have a 30-minute lunch between your rounds, that's not allowed unless the committee allows it. So if anyone's ever played golf in Japan, you actually do sit down and have lunch between nines, and that's part of the culture and part of the golfing. So that's actually allowed and happens over there. All right, a player may be allowed a short delay for certain regions, such as when the player seeks help from a referee or the committee. So when someone calls for a rules official and I'm on the hole and I don't know what I'm doing, so I have to call Mike Church over, and it takes him 5 minutes to get over there because he got stuck in the mud. And that's not going to come back on the on the player. That's going to be on us. But
Long memories.
yeah. The other one that could happen and has happened, I believe it happened in one of our tournaments. I forget. Maybe it wasn't ours, but when the player becomes injured or ill. So a couple years ago in the women's AM, U.S. women's AM, the final, one of the players there, Virginia Elena Carter, I think her name was, from Duke. She got sick, and they waited about 10 minutes or 5 minutes. She was laying down in the shade because it was 90 degrees and super hot, and I think it was on the second 18. And they just paused play for 10 minutes to allow her to take a break. When I was in high school, one of my teammates in a regional took a ball off the cart path to his lower region, and he also got a little bit of time to recover as well. So yeah, we heard about that one on the course a lot. It was a fun time. Not for him though. Yeah. So the book says you're given essentially 15 minutes is what the max time is when a player becomes injured or ill. At that point in time, there's going to have to be a decision as to, is the player going to withdraw or continue on and play. And then when there's good reason too. So if you have another thing that happened at the state finals, if there was a apparent gunshot at a course, play was delayed on a certain hole for more than 15 minutes probably, for good reason. And then when you have Mick trying scaring him, and what did he say? That you remember what he said? He was something joking, but anyways.
It's okay to let the group behind you play through.
So,
Or one of these things where somebody's sick or somebody ill.
yeah,
They're home for 10 minutes.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think we actually will talk about that in a sec, but no, it's a good question. I mean, yeah, it's slow groups are encouraged to allow faster groups to play through, but in our events we typically don't disrupt the order of play. However, in that scenario, I think that would be a great time where you would let the groups play through. If you're waiting 15 minutes, just let the groups play through. Now, it would be a little bit different if it was the final day and you had two groups left in the course and the group ahead was the second to last group. You probably wouldn't let that final group go through. But if it was just the first round and everyone was playing 18 holes that day, you'd probably let that group play through. But that would be something that the committee would decide, not necessarily that the players would do. All right, for slowing down play, that first time you're going to get a one-stroke penalty, and then the second time it's going to be a general penalty, and then after that it will be a disqualification. And then if the player takes that 20-minute lunch break, they're going to get their penalty on the 10th hole, not the 9th hole. So here's what we just talked about, John's question. A round of golf is meant to be played at a prompt pace, but each player should recognize that his or her place is likely to affect how long it will take other players to play, not only players in their group, but also in other groups in the course. So the players are encouraged to allow faster groups to play through. But when we say this, just like I said before, you need to keep in mind that this is written for all certain types of play. So if you and I are playing and we're playing in a fourth.
Kyle has one on his desk.
I thought this was it.
I do.
They kind of switched last.
There you go. So we if I'm playing in a foursome and there's a twosome behind me and we're just out playing for fun or whatever, we're gonna let that twosome play through. But in a tournament, it works a little bit differently. The committee is going to be the people in charge of setting that order and doing any modifications to it. So in the case of someone that's waiting 15 minutes because they're sick, we may let the group play through. We may have a scenario where we have a foursome that's taking forever, and we make the decision to break them up into twosomes to help with pace of play. That's something that the committee can do, but not something that the players themselves can decide. So if we think that's the best option, we'll talk about it. We won't always do that, and we'll actually probably rarely do that, break it up into twosomes in that example. But sometimes we will for various reasons. Because we might not know, especially in some of the junior events, we might not no, the 4 players that we thought, or that they said were 3.3 handicap indexes were really, 30.3. Yeah, exactly. And they can't be playing together in a foursome. So there's certain things that we can do. And then the recommendations here for pace of play is to obviously make sure that you're ready for each stroke that you make, but also to move quickly between your shots. And when it's like I said before, when it's your turn to play, be ready. You can do a lot of stuff beforehand, get yardages, pace off anything that you need before it's your turn to hit, unless you're the first person to play. But typically when we're talking to people about pace of play, one of the things that I would encourage you not to say is, pick it up, because what the hell does that mean? When we talk to the players, it's better to tell them you're 7 minutes behind your time. You need to catch up to the group in front of you to get back in position. We'd encourage you to walk faster between your shots, or get ready to play when it's your turn to play, or be ready. Give them some specific ideas on what to do, not just the generic, oh, hurry up, because that doesn't really help the players. And the ones that game the system, they know what hurry up means. Hurry up means you're not going to do anything this time. Come back and talk to me 2 holes later, and maybe you'll do something.
How about if they're a whole hole behind, and you tell them, can you see the group in front of you?
Yeah.
And they say no. I said,
Right.
You better speed it up.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's good as well. I mean, and anything that you can reference how far they're out of position or what they need to do to get back in position is good. And you'll always, I always run into a situation. You'll have a threesome, and one player will have a slow pre-shot routine, and you know it's going to be slow. And maybe maybe they're behind because of that person. Maybe it's just everyone is a little bit deliberate. Trying to tell someone to pick up or speed up their pre-shot routine mid-round is not going to get anything done. That conversation is better to be had after the round. But to tell them that, just walk faster between your shots, so that you're not saying your pre-shot routine sucks, you need to, pick it up, which might be the truth. But if you tell them to walk faster between their shots, that's a way for them to pick up their pace, to show that they're trying to get ahead without impacting their pre-shot routine. Because, it's most golfers that have slow pre-shot routines are going to keep it slow unless they learn it, and they're not going to learn it mid-round. So I try to not talk about pre-shot routines until after the round's over. Or I'll talk to their parents or spectators or whatever, their caddy, and say, hey, they need to pick that up. But I usually wait till after the round to talk to players about that. Yeah.
I always wondered about in the stroke play event, for instance, and you have some players who, get frustrated by playing with somebody who is not keeping up, and you see them after they play and hole out, they leave the hole. And so they haven't been there to perform the responsible duty of
making sure
making sure the player holed out. How do you deal with that, or what do you do? Is that an issue between those 2 players? Tell them to slow down, or make sure you have done your, verification of that person did hold out, or he or she just didn't make it away.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and one that probably happens more often than we would like to admit. But yeah, I mean, I think in those scenarios where people are walking off or walking ahead, just to encourage them that, if one person does it, if there's a threesome and one person does it, that's okay. But someone needs to stay there to watch, to make sure, like you said, to verify that score is being made. If one person wants to walk ahead, as long as they're not disrupting play, then that's fine. But someone does need to stay there. And ideally it's the marker, but there needs to be one person there for sure to see that shot. And sometimes too, if
issue, but,
right.
You're trying to get them to, you're being on the clock, you're being timed or whatever.
Right.
I want to get out of here and make sure it's not me that's being
Right. Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. And I think the other thing too, like this is probably not the example that you were talking about, but the other one that would come up is you have, one player had to go back to hit another shot after looking for the ball for 3 minutes, and then the other two players walk ahead. And if you're a rules official there, that might be a scenario where if they're behind already, tell the players, the two that finished, hey, go ahead to the next tee and get ready to hit. I'll stay here and watch this player hole out and make sure that they do that so they can get moving. But if they're just doing it just because, maybe they're doing it behind, or maybe that's what they want to do, is you have to watch out for the etiquette issue, like you said. But when we play in foursomes, we at least on our junior events, we strongly encourage the players to walk ahead respectfully to do that to help with pace of play. There's been some research done by the AJGA that's pace of play is improved by 18 minutes when players walk ahead, but they need to do it in a respectful way. All right, we talked about this 40 seconds at the beginning in the purpose statement, but that's in there, and again that player should be able to play more quickly than that, and they're encouraged to do so. So it's pretty blatant in here that they want people to play in less than 40 seconds. Again, there's gonna be a little bit more leniency with that first player to play, because everyone else has a little bit more time to get ready, other than that first person. But that 40 seconds most people would think plenty of time to hit a shot. Playing out of turn to help pace of play. So depending on the form of play, there are times when the players may play out of turn to help pace. In match play, the players may agree that one of them will play out of turn to save time. So you might have someone hit a shot or want to hit a shot first because they know they have to run to the bathroom. And if they can, putt out and then run to the bathroom while the other player's putting their 30-foot putt, they'd like to do that. And that's okay. We talked about this, I think, last week, but anytime in match play, when you make that agreement, it has to happen every single time. It's not a blanket agreement. So we can't say on the first tee or the hole, anytime we're just going to play out a play to save time for any shot. It needs to be every single shot. You need to have that agreement. Whereas in stroke play, we know that playing out of turn is encouraged as long as it's safe and to play, and we're not infringing on anyone's right to play first or giving someone an advantage or taking an advantage by playing first. Pace of play.
If you're playing in a match play.
Yep.
And let's say these guys or these women aren't really experienced in playing match play, and on the first green, you're a referee. On the first green, I take the putt, or player A hits the putt, and he's 4 feet past the hole. Player B doesn't concede it. He goes, I'm going to finish out. Can I, as a referee, say you have to wait? Can I do that?
Yeah. So you, as a referee in match play, you want to control the order of play. So you would try to step in there and stop that. But if you couldn't, if they just happened, then you sit there and you don't say anything, and then the player would either recall the stroke or let it happen. But yeah, you try to stop it, but once it happens, then you just kind of sit there and don't say, hey, player, you can recall that if you want. That's on the player to know. But you want to try to stop it. We talked about the pace of play policy, and that is a committee or local rule that's put in place. And we have that as well, that tracks not only the total time par or the time it takes to play around, but also the time per stroke at 40 seconds as well. All right, 5.7, stopping or resuming play. So a player must not stop play except in these 3 cases: if the player has been suspended, and A suspension could be for multiple things. It could be for darkness. It could be for weather-related issues, and they're treated a little bit differently, which we'll find out in a minute. And if we stop play by agreement in match play, players in match can agree to stop play, except that they cannot delay the competition. So in our match play events, we're not going to allow the players to agree to stop unless they both think it's dangerous and there's lightning in the area. Then we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt there, or at least initially, until we can prove to them that there's no lightning or anything in the area. But this example is more like if John and Madeline were playing a match in their club whatever tournament, and that was just you pick a date and you play your match, and they go out and it's hole 13 and it's starting to pour down and they're just like, forget this, we'll just pick up some other time or tomorrow. That's fine, because they have a set time to complete their match, and it's not going to hurt the competition for them just to finish it tomorrow. An individual player can stop because of lightning. A player, if they reasonably believe there is danger from lightning, but they need to report it to the committee as soon as possible. So we've probably heard this example before, but in 2016, a few of us were down working a college tournament, and one of the coaches was going crazy about the weather and was not too happy that we didn't delay play until we did. But what we explained to her after, which she was misinformed by another rules official, not with the GAM, was that the players had to keep playing unless the rules officials took them off. Well, what we told the coach was that if your players feel it's unsafe or you think it's unsafe for your players, you can call them off. But you just need to tell us, and that at that point, the committee will decide if it's legit. And in her case, it would have been in the scenario that we had there, because there was dark clouds around the course, and eventually we did delay it, but she wanted us to do it probably 5 minutes earlier than we did.
The automated systems.
Yeah.
Human barometer out there is probably not as accurate as the automated system.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So like most courses, or a lot of the courses have those automated systems, and the majority of times when we have our events at those courses, we'll use those. But in a lot of cases, we're using technology that we have on the computer and on our phones, but it's not as high tech as that. But when we have that, we always use it. Yep. If a player stops for any reason not allowed under this rule or fails to report to the committee when required to do so, the player is disqualified. All right, so what happens when the committee suspends play? There's two types of suspensions. An immediate suspension, so if there's imminent danger, so if the coronavirus is caught on the course, we're going to immediate suspend play. Quarantine the back nine and the front nines in the clubhouse. But in this case here, we're going to require all players come off immediately. They cannot hit another shot, and they need to come off immediately. Typically, this is going to be indicated by an error. I should look this up. Is it 2 for suspension? I think in our book, or in our local rules, does someone have the sheet with them? I think we have it laid out. I think it's
Immediate is 1 prolonged blast. Normal is consecutive.
Okay, that's what it is. 3 short ones. And then what's 2? Nothing?
2 is
Resume. There you go. So yeah, so if we're immediately suspending, that's going to be 1 air horn blast, and that all the golfers are going to come off the course or go to the area that we designate them to be. So that's page 86. Talks about imminent danger in the big book, page 86. And then the normal suspension, so you'll typically see this if it's dark or the course becomes unplayable. At that point, we'll suspend play with 3 short air horn blasts is what we use. But then what the players have the option to do here is that they can either suspend play immediately or they continue playing the hole that has been started within the group. So if all the players in the group are between 2 holes, they must stop the play and must not make a stroke to begin another hole until the committee resumes play. But if you look at there, it says if all the players are between holes. So typically what you'll see is that it's getting dark out. They know they're going to call off play or suspend play. You'll have one person putt out really quick, run over to the next tee, and try to hit a tee shot before that air horn goes off so that the entire group can finish off that next hole. Because once anyone in the group starts that hole, the entire group is allowed to finish it as long as it happened before the horn was blown. But they don't have to. Yep. But most of the times it's, it could be the second round of the tournament and it's the difference between, catching the early flight home or having to wake up and play one hole and then miss the cut. So a lot of times the players will want to finish. And sometimes the players will not want to because they're playing like crap. And so it really just depends. But yeah, they don't all need to agree in stroke play. They don't all need to agree to do the same thing. If it's while playing the hole, any player in the group starts the hole, the players can choose to either stop or play out the hole. Okay, the players are allowed a brief amount of time, 2 minutes, to decide whether to stop play or play out the hole. So this might be a kind of a weather issue. If we suspend play because of the course becoming unplayable, well, maybe on the green on hole 4 and 7 and 12, it's unplayable, but on, I'm on my last hole of the day and the putting green is just fine, and I'm going to keep playing in that case. As long as I started that hole, I can do that. Okay, and just like we said, if one player in the group starts the hole, then anyone in that group can finish it. But once they complete the hole, they can't go on to their next hole. So any time after the air horn blast, any player in a group that plays the hole beyond where the first player in the group was playing from, which I know it's confusing, is not allowed. And then what happens if the players don't agree? So in match play, we obviously have an issue there. If one player wants to stop, both players are going to have to stop. If the player doesn't stop when the other player does, then that player is going to lose the hole. So it'd be a good idea for him or her to stop playing because continuing to play doesn't really help them. And then in stroke play, it's up to that player. So if Mike, wants to play because he's playing really well and knocking in every putt, and I've made 3 bogeys in a row and I've got bad eyes and I can't see very well, I'm going to stop, but Mike can keep going. That's fine. But here you have this exception that the player may continue to play only if the player's marker stays to keep the player's score. So unless I really hate Mike and I'm not going to keep his score, then I guess I could prevent him from playing, but I'm probably not going to do that. Yeah, Jim.
The interesting thing about it is when you stop play, what you can't do is make another stroke. You could mark your ball. You could drop a ball. If you wanted to test the willpower of the weather gods, you could skip back and forth across the fairway. You can do anything you want, except you can't make another stroke.
When it's suspended for immediate or bad weather or lightning or whatever, if it's just a normal suspension, you could keep playing. But yeah, you're right. So yeah, if you and typically that's what happens too. We should have talked about this too, but typically when that one air horn blasts, so we got lightning in the area, we recommend that the players mark their ball, and we put 3 or 4 tees down there. Don't put any quarters or any coins down there because I go and pick those up before we resume play. But yeah, put. Oh yeah, silver dollars. Who was telling me about silver dollars? Yeah.
By the way, inch and a quarter.
Inch and 5/8.
5/8.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so usually 3 tees. They don't have to mark it. If they want to leave their ball out there, that's perfectly fine. And then we'll find out when we resume play what their options are. But that's up to them. But typically we ask them to mark it. If they don't mark it, that's even better than leaving a quarter because a Pro V is worth much more than a quarter. So I usually pick those up too. I leave the Callaways and the TaylorMades. All right. And if we continue to play when we can't, or we play a hole beyond where we should, we're going to get DQ'd for that. However, there's no penalty if the committee decides that the failure to stop was justified. There is no breach of the rule, no penalty. So in certain circumstances that might apply would be if Craig and I are playing and we're out in the corner of the golf course and the air horn was blown from the clubhouse and we didn't hear it and we keep playing. Okay, that's okay because we didn't hear it. But if it was loud.
What'd you say?
Huh? Oh, gotcha. Nice. That was good. Solid. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. So again, a smart player will do exactly what Barry just did. Yeah. So, but there could be other scenarios as well. If we're playing in an event where it's the first time they've ever played and they're shooting a $130 and they hit one shot after the horn went off, I mean, everyone except a certain player or person rules official, referee I won't name, would just let them go.
I may as well use his name, but I don't know if you're talking about.
Not everyone. Yeah. I think I gave it away with the referee. All right. All right, so now we're going to talk about resuming play. So resuming play is 2 air horn blasts. So a player must resume play from where he or she stopped play on a hole, or if between holes, the next teeing area, even if play resumed on a later day. The player must be present at the location identified to resume play and be ready to play as well. So if we're going to resume, if we have an hour rain delay and then we get people in position to start playing and I'm not there, that's going to be a problem. And we're going to have a similar scenario like we did to start the round, that if I show up there within 5 minutes, I'm going to be okay, but I'm going to get a penalty. But if I'm there after the 5 minutes, then I'm going to have an issue. Okay, and then exceptions, those exceptions that I just kind of mentioned in terms of failing to start on time apply here as well. So as long as I'm within 5 minutes, I'm not going to be DQ'd. I'm going to get my general penalty, but not my disqualification. But after 5 minutes, if I'm not there and ready to play, then I'm going to be DQ'd. And this is not really related to resuming play, but another thing too that you'll possibly see it with some of the playoffs that we do with our qualifiers is that if we have someone that's not there at the time we're supposed to start, we do need to technically wait 5 minutes after that start time before we give the player that spot. So if we have two people playing for one spot and the one player is there and the other person isn't, we technically need to wait 5 minutes after that starting time to allow that player to show up and get their 2-stroke penalty and then try to go out and play off. I mean, chances are no one's going to win being down 2 before hitting a shot, but you never know. All right. So lifting the ball when play stops. So we talked about this a little bit. you can mark it, and if you'd like, or you can leave the ball. It's really up to you. But when play is resumed, the player must replace the original ball or another ball on the original spot. And if we're not sure where that was, then we're going to estimate it and place it. And that was always the case. Maybe not always, but it was at least in 2018. But if the player's ball was not lifted, the player can play it as it lies. They can, at that time, mark it, pick it up, clean it, whatever they need to do, and then replace it. Or they can replace another ball as well at that time on that spot. So even if you don't mark it before, you're going to have the option to mark it when play is resumed. And if the lie of the ball has been altered, the player must replace that ball or another ball as required under Rule 14.2D. All right, let's see here. So if the lie of the ball is altered after the ball was lifted and before the ball is replaced, Rule 14.2D does not apply. The original ball or another ball must be replaced in the original spot, which if not known must be estimated. If that lie or other conditions affecting the stroke were worsened during the time, Rule 8.1D applies. So now I'm going to need a minute to think about that. So now we're getting into my favorite part of the rules where it says reference C rule this, C rule that, and they just added a complexity here. But is this right? So this is saying here that if the lie of the ball is altered after the ball was lifted and before the ball is replaced. So if you had if I'm reading this right, so let's say the ball's in the bunker and it was nicely raked, and then overnight it flooded out. It's not prepared the same way it was. Is this saying that you get to restore it, right?
If there's been water go through the bunker, you're entitled to restore it. I thought it was.
8.1D is restoring conditions worsened after ball game arrest. It's entitled to the lie your stroke gave you.
Interpretation though?
I don't know.
Well, so I think,
No, I mean here, my memory, I wouldn't want to take a test on this, but I think there was an interpretation that said that if somebody came by and raked the bunker, not you, but somebody else, then that's okay. But if a gully washer came through, then that's natural forces and you have to accept that result. Or maybe
This is
I'm
after
just
the ball.
making
This
it
is
all up.
page 124.
Yeah.
Middle of the page, in the blue, the conditions affecting stroke are worsened by player by a natural object or natural forces such as wind or water. The player must not improve those worsening conditions.
right. That talks about.
Then 8.1 doesn't 8.1D come in then?
So if now your ball in the fairway is sitting in temporary water, you couldn't move it out of the water?
Well, in that case, you'd be okay because you could take relief from that.
Okay.
Let me see
Or
here.
if somebody's cart rolled over your ball with their tires.
Yeah, so that one you'd be okay to place that ball as in the nearest most similar lie, in that case, because that's not like weather or natural forces.
Right, that makes sense.
This only talks about when before, after the ball's lifted, but
If
before
a
it's
tree
replaced.
falls on your ball, that's a natural force and that's a natural object. Yeah, so you don't get relief. If a signpost falls over, that's an artificial object, so you do get relief. Somewhere in here, there's a little list of 3 that at least leave me just scratching my head and think, how am I ever going to remember this?
Page 122.
You want to talk about.
I think
during suspension of play.
Yeah.
After a ball's been lifted and before it's been played. So you can
Right.
restore your condition.
Right. Yeah, I
Unless
think,
there are loose impediments under there that if you moved them before would have moved the ball and then you can't.
Right.
You're entitled to the lie you had before the ball was lifted.
right.
Point 8D, parentheses 2, page 124.
Hmm.
Did that cover it? 8.1?
I don't think so.
Well, it says right on 74, there's an exception. Live ball worsens when or after the ball is lifted or moved and before it's replaced. It says this is covered by 14.2D unless the lie was worsened when play was stopped and the ball was lifted, in which case this rule applies. So with 8.1D, that applies.
Right.
8.1D2 is, that's,
So it's 8.1 is when, so 8.1 talks about when restoration is allowed, but then it says that the exception is that it's not allowed as,
And remember, this was done to simplify.
Kyle, there's two interpretations on 5.7D.
on
That-
what-
On 5.7D here, there's two
Okay.
interpretations that discuss this stuff
Yeah.
that you're talking about.
you're going to make us read them, John, or?
I know they're long, okay?
Okay. No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding. I'm just
I have the app, I don't have the
right.
book.
Yeah.
So it says, when replacing a ball, 14.2 in a bunker does not apply. The player is not required to recreate the original lie.
Mhm.
Okay, and then it says if for example, if the bunker were raked, he could place it in the original spot without replacing an embedded ball. The bunker's not been prepared. Player's not necessarily entitled to conditions affecting the stroke he or she had before play was stopped, if they
Gotcha.
were worsened by natural forces. Okay?
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
And then 5.7D1/2 talks about removal of loose impediments, which is
Right.
right. You can't remove a loose impediment that was there before you lifted the ball if it would have caused the ball to move when you
Right.
tried to lift it.
When it was there. Right. Hmm. Okay.
But if it's a small tree branch that fell during the suspension, then you could move it if you're able
If it's
to.
an artificial object, you can move it. If it's a natural object, you can't. I don't know where that is, but that's somewhere.
And it becomes a loose impediment.
Yeah. Well, I think that would just, I mean, you would be,
Halfway through that paragraph, however, when resuming play, if a loose impediment is now present that was not there when the ball was lifted, that loose impediment may be removed.
there you go. Yep. Yep. So you're right there. So yeah, so if that stick was there, you would be able, or that branch, you could move that branch.
Okay.
Yep.
What page you looking at?
That was page 90. That one we just talked about was that 5.7D1/2. And that second sentence there that Lori read.
but then go to 8.1D2 interpretations on page 124.
First bullet point.
Do I have to? Oh, man.
Yeah, if you want to be as confused
First-
as I am, you do. Right there where your thumb is.
Yep. So I think this,
124.
so I think this goes back to and I learned this a long time after I started learning the rules, but there's how did they say? The specific always governs the general. So 8.1 is this general rule of when things happen, but there's a specific situation that's covered in 5.7 because play has been suspended. So if play hadn't been suspended, then 8.1 is going to rule the day. But since play is suspended, we have this specific example that overrules the general rule.
Runs fast enough, it's okay too.
Yeah, right. So in this example, we have like 8.1D is this general rule, but we have a very specific application of that rule because play is suspended. So normally, if that twig was there, we wouldn't be able to remove it without the fear of causing our ball to move and getting a penalty. But because it happened during a suspension and it wasn't there when play was suspended, now we can move it before replacing it. So it's that concept that is confusing, but a lot of times does make sense that the specific governs the general.
Typically, you are entitled to or stuck with, as the case may be, the result of your last shot. Ball
Right.
comes to rest and something happens to it after that, typically you can fix that.
Correct.
Because you picked it up, play was suspended, you're basically creating a scenario that you had before.
No.
The suspension occurred.
Well,
If
correct.
it got altered.
Correct. And I think the other thing too is that, I mean, if you think about it from a logical standpoint, if it happens, while I'm standing over the ball, that time period is 30 seconds or whatever. But if it happens over the course of 12 hours, there's a lot more things that can happen. All right.
Clear as mud.
All right, so lifting a ball when play stops, replacing and substituting a ball when play resumes. So what to do if the ball or ball markers move while play is stopped? The player's ball or ball marker is moved in any way before play resumes, including by natural forces. The player must either replace the original ball or another ball in the original spot, which if unknown must be estimated and then placed, or place a ball marker to mark the original spot and then place the ball where that ball marker was. So in either case here, we're getting the ball back to where it was when we resume play. And if we don't know the exact spot, we're going to estimate it and place it on that spot.
So if the water washed the ball down the hill and I got a 100-yard shot instead of a 150-yard shot, I got to go back to the 150.
Yeah, you got to go back to where it was. Yeah.
It's no fun at all.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, if it was on the green and it went in the hole, I think it would count as having been holed with your last stroke.
No.
Like somebody I know down here once said, there's a spot on every course where good luck ends and bad luck begins, and you just found it.
Yeah. Bad luck. You found bad luck in that case. Again, if the player's conditions affecting the stroke were worsened while play was stopped, see Rule 8.1D. We just talked about there. All right. Any questions on 5 before we move to 6? Okay. All right, 6, playing a hole. So 6 covers how to play a hole, such as the specific rules for teeing off, the requirement to use the same ball for entire hole except when substitution is allowed, the order of play, which matters more in match play and stroke play, and completing a hole. All right, so when is the hole started? When he or she makes a stroke to begin the hole is started even if the stroke was made from outside the teeing area. The stroke was canceled under a rule. Okay, so even though I teed up 2 club lengths in front of the tee markers, I still started my round once I made that stroke. We need to start within the teeing area with a few exceptions as we know about. The player must start anywhere inside that teeing area. So that's that 2, which I think I have a picture here in a second. That's 2 club lengths back from the front of the tee markers. And if a player who's starting a hole plays from outside the teen area, including a wrong set of tee markers, then in match play, there's no penalty, but the opponent can cancel the stroke. Yeah, Jim?
It may be worth noting, we talked earlier on, you got the general area and then you got 4 specific areas. Where's the ball at? Because the specific area, that rule applies. Bunkers have their own rule. Penalty areas have their own rule. Greens have their own rule, but it's rule 6 that governs teeing area.
Teen area, yep.
This is the teeing area. The ball's in the teeing area. This is
Right.
the control.
Yep. All right. So in match play, again, if we're a referee, like we talked about earlier, we're going to try to control the order of the play, and we're going to stop the player from playing. We're also going to stop the player from playing outside the teen area. If we're not near the teen area and we don't see that, obviously we don't, we're not going to step in there. And just like before, if people do play out of turn, that's not our place to tell the player, you can recall that shot. If the player asks us the question, hey, what are my options here? Then you can provide them that information, but you don't need to go out of your way to tell them that you can recall that shot if you want. If they don't know the rule and after that person, after they don't recall the shot, you might want to tell them between holes or as you're walking down the fairway to let them know that, hey, just so that you could have recalled that shot. But that's on the players to know that. And I think we typically go over things like that in our talks with the players before match play, anyways. But if the player the opponent does cancel the stroke, it must be done promptly before either player makes another stroke. Okay, and then when the opponent cancels a stroke, he or she cannot withdraw the cancellation. So you can't say, hey, you need to re-hit that. The player then knocks it in the hole in the next shot. You can't say, oh, I didn't mean that. You need to play that original one. That doesn't work like that.
Did the order switch? So would they have to replay the tee shot if they have honors?
Yeah. So they would go right away. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, the order wouldn't change for that. Mike. Yep.
I'm confused on the match play on 2 different areas here. I get up outside the teeing area, I hit my ball out of bounds. My opponent does not cancel the stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So according to over here, it says I'm supposed to take a drop where the last stroke is played. And according to here, you're supposed to correct it by re-teeing it in the teeing box. Which one is true?
Well, you're not correct. You're not correcting it because the stroke wasn't canceled.
No,
So you're gonna drop.
you're gonna drop. Okay, wacko. I hit the ball down the fairway 300 yards. My opponent says you played outside of the teeing area. I'd like you to play inside.
No.
When you didn't recall your stroke, you go back to where you hit your original shot.
Okay.
Your original shot was not within the teeing area. So now your 300-yard ball is in goal. What, at least for me, I consciously have to think that square or rectangle that's cut as the teeing area is not the teeing area. The teeing area is between the 2 markers and 2 club lengths back.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it happens all the time.
I understand
At
that.
least to me, I don't make that jump.
So he made the mistake of teeing out of in the wrong place,
Right.
outside the teeing area. But when they recall the stroke, you can actually play it outside the teeing
It
area
goes
again.
back to where you played your
Stroke and
last stroke.
distance.
Say that.
Right.
No,
say
wait,
that
hold
again.
on.
Did he say you recall the stroke?
Oh, no, if you recall.
No, the
No,
guy,
he
you
does
get
not
out,
recall the stroke.
I
you
did
get
not
from
recall the stroke.
outside, he doesn't recall it, so you
Correct.
take stroke and distance penalty, come back and drop where you play. And now, now he can now claim that he wants you to replay that one because you played outside, but that you played in the right place, so he's wrong.
Okay.
Not a valid claim, right?
Yeah.
Wait,
there's
so-
no valid claim.
So okay, so I'm confused here. So if I tee off a club length in front of the teen area, and I hit it OB, and it doesn't get recalled. I go back, I can't tee it back up in the teen area.
No, you gotta play from the spot where you.
I need to play in front of that.
Okay,
You
all right.
teed it up outside
Right.
the teeing area.
You already hit your tee shot.
So you got a penalty for that. Is that correct?
Yes.
All you-
Not in
No,
match play.
no,
Not in
no.
not in match
We're
play.
match play.
Not in match play.
We're in match play.
Yeah.
All you've done there is establish the spot that you've got to come back to. Stroke and distance takes you back to where you hit your last
Mhm.
shot.
He didn't lose the whole.
And when he doesn't, this used to be a rules exam.
It's on every year,
You brought it in
every year.
I mean, it follows you, but.
Okay, but if in Kyle's scenario, he tees it up one club length in front of the, okay. Now, I recall the shot.
Then it's back.
Then I
And
go
can
back
go
in the
back
tee.
to the teeing area.
Right.
I think then you must go back.
Yeah,
You must
Well,
go back to the
you don't
tee.
have to. It'd be the same thing that would happen again. And then, right, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
But yes,
But I
but
can,
if it's recalled, then I go back and I can
but
tee it
I
up.
may go back to the tee.
Yeah.
And I'm still hitting one,
Yes.
if it's recalled. If it's recalled.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, I need to, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So basically, instead of teeing up like one club length, I need to go like put my ball 1 foot from the hole,
Play from the
putt,
wrong tee.
and then try and see if they recalled my shot, then I would just go put it back 1 foot in front of the hole, and then play. Right? I mean, that's what we're saying.
Called your stroke.
Or sorry, if they didn't recall my stroke.
Well, he's gonna recall that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right.
If it was rolled.
Move on.
That's the-
Kyle, move on. Move on. All right. If a good referee will never let this come up.
Thank you, Dinky.
If he-
Yeah.
if he's there, he won't. If he's not there, then.
All right. In stroke play, the player is going to get the general penalty and must correct the mistake by playing a ball from inside the teen area. Okay, and we know that if they don't fix this before making a stroke to begin another hole or before returning their scorecard, they're going to get disqualified. Any strokes made with this ball or any penalty strokes by solely playing this ball don't count, but they do need to go back and fix it. There'd be modifications to that disqualification too for certain types of max score rules. I think we'll get to that as well.
Kyle, just to clarify that in stroke play, that's not playing from the wrong place, nor is it playing the wrong ball. It is pure and simply this rule that says I have to go back to the tee and play from the correct place.
Yes.
So from a definitional perspective, it is neither the wrong place nor the wrong ball.
But it's not a wrong ball.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's not the wrong place either, but definitional. Okay.
It's not in play.
Yeah.
Right. It's just pure and simply not in play.
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
He's thinking.
You simply haven't put the ball into play properly.
the ball. The
The
ball
ball's
is
not in play. You haven't put the ball properly into play. Says that.
Page 93.
The hole has started, no matter where you hit it from, when you take the first swing, the hole has started, but I don't think the ball's in play.
366, a ball played from outside the tee area.
Number 10.
Start of a hole or trying to correct a mistake is not playing from the wrong place.
Oh,
okay.
pretty hard to argue with that.
Is not in play. Okay. Yep. There you go. There it is.
Easy words. Doesn't sound like the
All right. The teen area.
Taking the test.
The teen area rules in 6.2b apply whenever a player is required or allowed to play a ball from the teen area. This includes when the player is starting the hole. The player will play again from the teeing ground under Rule 14.6. Or sorry, under a rule, see Rule 14.6. So the player's ball is in play in the teen area after a stroke or after the player has taken relief. And this rule applies only to the teen area the player must play from in starting the hole he or she is playing, not to any other teen locations on the course whether on the same hole or different hole. So again, that, as Jim was saying earlier, that teen area is that two club length rectangle, not the nice, mown grass pad or whatever you want to call it. It's the actual two club length rectangle. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So here's a diagram from the book 6.2b that talks about when the ball is inside the teen area and when it's outside. So it needs to be, completely out of it, or any part of it touching it is okay. So you see that first example where the ball is overhanging, or that example in the top right, it's overhanging, but part of it is in that teen area, so we're okay.
Kyle, the teeing area size will depend on, but men and women have different length drivers, so it's just the length of their driver.
Length of their longest club in their bag, except the putter.
Except the putter.
Yep. So 99 times out of 100, that's going to be their driver.
Yes.
Yep.
And another one they do to you is, let's say you got 3 tees, and you tee off from the middle, and it dribbles and it comes to rest in the teeing area of the tee ahead of you. And you do something, and then they want to know how many strokes did the person take. Well, you don't get any relief from that other teeing area because it wasn't your teeing area.
Right. That's not a general area.
It's
the general.
Right.
Mm.
So I mean, if you went in there and picked some pieces of
Oh,
grass,
right,
which you can do in your teeing area,
Right.
you could not do it then because that's not your teeing area.
Mm-hmm.
You have to press the ground.
Right.
Just as an added note, if a player
Can't clean, dude.
puts the ball in play properly from the teeing area and decides to take stroke and distance relief and plays in front of the teeing area, that ball the player improperly plays in front of the teeing area is in play. He gets 2 additional strokes for playing from the wrong place. So you don't have to correct necessarily. I mean, from the teeing area, that ball still would be in play even though he played from the wrong place.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's just it has to start. It has to be put in play at one point. Yeah. At the first point. After that point, it's just a penalty. It doesn't need to be fixed. Yep.
If it's 150 yards down the fairway,
Yeah.
right?
Huh?
Again?
If he hit a ball
Mm-hmm.
out of play and put the ball back in play, put the next ball in play in front of him, he's playing from the wrong position. It's 2 strokes, right?
Yeah, serious breach too, right?
I'm saying if he went 150 yards down to hit, it's a serious breach.
Yeah.
If he plays 2 strokes or two
club lengths
ahead, it's not a serious breach.
But he's hitting 3.
He's actually going to be hitting
And 4.
He's going to actually hitting
5.
He's taking stroke against it. He's hitting 3 plus a 2-stroke penalty.
All right. We talked about this. The ball in the teen area is when any part of it touches the teen area. The player can stand outside the teen area to hit their shot too. You can put it on a tee, or you can tee it off the ground itself. You can do certain things inside the teen area, like kick the ground up, or take your club and kind of create a natural tee with the grass there. You could put it on a mound of sand if you wanted to. There's certain special things you can do when playing the ball from the teen area.
I don't know, does anybody tee the ball real high? The tees are limited to what, 4 1/4 inches? Somebody mentioned this about Laura Davis, but if you kick your heel in the ground, you could make a little hill that's say 5 inches tall.
Well, you'd be there.
And you'd be within the rules.
Oh, T-ball.
So are you saying if you punched it up that high and then put a 4-inch tee on top of it, then it would be T-ball?
Yeah.
I don't think you can do both.
I don't know.
Can you do both or not?
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do both.
You can
do both.
And then put the tee on top.
They put it on top.
That's T-ball.
That's T-ball. That's the real definition.
It's a T-ball.
Yeah, you just make it more. Yeah. All right. If we play from outside the teen area, then that first time, penalty for breach of Rule 6.2b2 is a general penalty the first time, and second time is, which unrelated to the first, would be a disqualification. So what is that saying? Like,
It's really the last black sentence, I think. If you,
oh, sorry, the non-conforming. Yeah, correct. The player must not. We skipped over that. Player must not make a stroke at a ball on a non-conforming tee or a ball tee not in a way allowed by the rule. In that case, you'd have the 2-stroke the first time and then DQ after that.
for 2 or 2 for the very.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you can't do both.
It doesn't say you can't though. That's the, and we don't need another 570-page book to find out.
Right.
I mean, the first line of there, it says a tee placed in or on the ground or the ground itself. So maybe you can't do both.
I think
You
someone's
can't
gonna have
play
to
T-ball.
have to try it.
Yeah. Well, they will.
Certain conditions in the teen area may be improved before making a stroke, so they can alter the surface of the ground in the teen area. That's what we were talking about there. Moving, bending, or breaking grass or weeds or other natural objects attached or growing in the ground in the teen area. Press down sand or soil. Remove dew, frost, or water. But if the player gets a general penalty, he or she takes any other action to, the player gets a general penalty if he or she takes any other action to improve the conditions affecting the stroke. So that would be the scenario where you might have like a tree branch in your way and you break off the branch. That would be still a penalty. Unless somehow that branch was attached or growing within the teen area, right? As it says here that move, bend.
I guess.
So if it is, as long as the tree was rooted outside the teen area, which I hope it is. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah, number one at Gowney is always an issue. So wherever we're setting tees there, that's one that you always get one person to take a shot and you hear a whack and you're just, oh geez. So just be careful on that one. Restrictions on moving tee markers when playing from the teen area. Location of tee markers is set by the committee and should remain in that same location for all players who will play from the teen area. Okay, this is more super important in stroke play and not so much in match play because that match is its own match. And so there's not a strict rule on being it's kept in the same place. If player improves the conditions affecting the stroke by moving any such tee marker before playing from the teen area, he or she gets a general penalty. In all other scenarios, tee markers are treated as regular movable obstructions that may be removed as allowed.
Association, Michigan.
15.2.
Yes.
So that common example that would be if you top one off your tee and you go to the next tee box and your ball is up against that tee marker. In that case, you can move that tee marker, play your shot, and then put the tee marker back after you're done. Ball is not in play until the stroke is made. So whether the ball is teed on the ground, yeah.
the tee marker moved by a player should be replaced. Okay, so you accidentally move it, trip over it, ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But in that 6.2B 4/1, it says the third bullet there is lifting it for no apparent reason. So, you can, you're supposed to replace it if you trip over it or even hit it in anger. But if you lift it for no apparent reason, there's no issue there. There's no penalty for that. Can you tell me why? Other than no.
Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think of an example of, I mean, I think it'd be something that maybe like, it'd be, I don't know, maybe someone, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyways, because whatever, it is what it is. But someone picks up one of our GAM T markers and says, hey, this is scratched to, what, look at this piece of, junk. And they show it to everyone and they put it back. I mean, I guess there's technically a reason that they lifted it, but that would be a scenario where they wouldn't be penalized for that. They'd,
Yeah.
right, right.
Which in the way of where they want to stand or something like that.
Well, that's a different scenario there. Yeah, yeah. So when we move things because it's in our stance, that's when we have an issue, or we say, Craig doesn't know what the hell he's doing out there, and he doesn't know how to set tees, so I'm going to move him where I think is right. Then we've got an issue too.
The tree behind him is in the way, or
right. So in that case, they wouldn't be allowed to move him, and that would be something that, that's on us as a committee to make sure we're putting them in places where that doesn't happen.
You just want to make sure that if you're lifting it for no apparent reason, it's not when it's your turn to play it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, but if you're lifting it when it's your turn to play, I've got to assume that you're trying to improve your position of your life.
Yeah. So I think as that interpretation is saying, I mean, until we get into a scenario where we're doing it because the player thinks it should be in a different position, or they are, like it says here, deliberately destroying the tee marker, the player could end up getting disqualified in that case, in that scenario. All right, ball's not in play until a stroke is made. So whether the ball is teed or on the ground when starting a hole or playing again from the tee area, the ball is not in play until the player makes a stroke. The ball may be lifted or moved without penalty before the stroke is made. And we all seen this happen. We've all made this corny joke, someone's getting ready to hit and all of a sudden their ball falls off the tee and one, and it's not one. But if you're trying to have some fun with people that you're playing with and they know the rules, you can tell them that it's a penalty, and they'll believe you. So if you're looking for an edge, you could probably get that if it happened. But anyways, it's not a penalty. They just put it back. Likewise, we had this scenario, I think, was it last year at the Masters with Zach Johnson, where he's taking a practice swing and his practice swing, the ball went crazy, 50 yards forward or whatever it was. That's no penalty. The ball wasn't in play, so he just puts it back. Correct. Yep. And that's all because he hasn't made that stroke. Right. But if the player makes a stroke at a ball while it is falling off or after it is falling off, there's no penalty, but the stroke counts. So if the player is taking their swing and they're going down and the ball moves and they try to hit it and they don't stop or they don't purposely swing over it, that's going to count, even though the ball was falling in that case. This one here, this was I think this was new as well, correct, for this year. So if a player's ball is in play in the tee area after a stroke, such as a whiff or a ball that happened to hit a tree and come back in the tee area, the player can lift and move the ball and tee it back up anywhere, or put the ball anywhere in that teen area and play from there.
It's gotta come back onto the teeing area, not the tee box.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So if you top it 5 yards, you can't without penalty go back and hit it again. If you want to re-tee it, it's going to cost you one. But yeah.
Well, if you hit your tee shot, it hits the tree.
Yeah.
Back into the tee area, I can only pick it up and tee it up somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you drop it 5 yards forward, you can't pick it up and bring it back. And
No.
No. Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they made this rule this way. I mean, I think there's probably some reason that it makes it easier to say this, so that's universally. But I mean, really, the only scenario that I think that we will see with this happening is a player whiffs it, or they hit the tee and the ball flops down. It's still within the teen area. If they want to re-tee it, they can without penalty in that case. Right. They're just hitting two in that case.
They hit it, and they hit a tree, and it comes back into the teen ground.
Teen area. Yep.
Well, you're not gonna see that circumstance. What we're gonna see
So
is
they could either hit it from the ground, or they could re-tee it. if they
Correct.
wanted to re-tee
Correct.
it
Yep. Yep.
properly in the teen.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I'm not going to try this year, but if it does happen to me, I'll let you know. I'll probably just
some of those
concede the hole and move on.
that Cole's got.
So yeah. All right. A penalty for playing a ball from a wrong place and breach of Rule 6.2b6 is a general penalty. All right, 6.3. Ball used and play of the hole. A hole is played as a progression of strokes made from the teen area to the putting green and into the hole. After teeing off, the player is normally required to play the same ball until the hole is completed. The player gets a penalty stroke for making a stroke at a wrong ball or substitute ball when substitution is not allowed. All right, so normally we want to continue to hole out with the same ball, but there's going to be certain cases where we'll be okay to substitute or play another ball, or to substitute, not necessarily play another ball. But a player may play any conforming ball, but they may change balls between two holes, provided that they meet any local rules that might be in place in terms of a one ball rule. And then all the balls that they use need to be conforming. The player must hole out with the same ball played from the teen area, except when that ball is lost or comes to rest out of bounds, or the player substitutes another ball, whether or not they're allowed to do so. And we'll talk about when we're taking relief, we're going to have the ability to substitute freely. The player should also put an identifying mark on the ball to be played. Should, not required, but should. Okay, when is a player not allowed to substitute another ball? So certain rules allow a player to change the ball he or she's using by substituting another ball, and others do not. So if you're taking relief under a rule, including when either dropping or placing a ball, the player may use either the original ball or another ball. So, for example, if I'm taking relief from my penalty area, I drop it and it rolls into the water, I don't need to go dig it out of the pond and grab that ball. I can just grab another one out of my pocket and drop that one. Do you have a question? Okay. When playing again from where a previous stroke was made, the player can use the original ball or another ball. It's the same thing. If I'm hitting a provisional, I don't need to go up, grab my first ball that hopefully I find, and then go back. I mean, I can hit another ball. I don't need to use the same one. Or when I'm replacing a spot, a ball in a spot, the player is not, in this case, it's not allowed to substitute a ball and must use the original ball with certain exceptions. So if we flip to 14.2a, So these exceptions are when the original ball, page 191 for you home gamers out there in the big book. The original ball cannot be recovered with reasonable effort in a few seconds, so long as the player did not deliberately cause the ball to become unrecoverable. Okay, so if I toss my ball to my caddy and my caddy's clumsy and he drops it and it goes into the pond, I'm okay. But if I am pissed off because I just missed a putt and I mark my ball and I chuck it in the pond, I need to go get that ball in order to not get another penalty. After play has been resumed or it is stopped, if the original ball is cut or cracked, I can put another ball in play in this case. Or when the original ball was played by another player as a wrong ball, I can substitute another ball in that case. All right. Let's see. We're getting close to the end here. Let's can we get through? I don't want to rush through substitution because it's kind of important. Let's keep going. We'll get through 6.3b. We'll stop at a wrong ball. When a player substitutes another ball, that is the ball in play. Okay, and again, even if it's not, even if they're not by rule allowed to substitute, the original ball is no longer in play, even if it is at rest on the course. And this is true even if the player substituted another ball for the original ball when not allowed, or replace, dropped, or placed a substituted ball in a wrong place, in a wrong way, or by using a procedure that does not apply. But, which we'll talk about when we get to 14, we have this eraser rule concept that we can correct these errors before playing the substituted ball. So we're not stuck with this until we actually make a stroke at the ball. Once we make a stroke at the ball, then we're going to continue on with the substituted ball, even if we didn't do it properly. Okay, so you're going to run into that scenario at least once or twice a year, where people taking relief from penalty areas and then walking up 20 yards, finding their golf ball, and then picking up the ball that they played from the penalty area, playing their first ball, and then we're going to have a whole crazy scenario, which will probably end up in them getting a large score or even disqualified in many cases. If a player's original ball has not been found and the player put another ball into play to take stroke and distance, or as allowed under the rule that applies when it is known or virtually certain, so that we just talked about with the penalty area. If it's known or virtually certain that our ball's in the penalty area, we take our drop and we hit our shot and we walk up 10 yards and our ball happens to be there. It's tough luck. You got to continue to play with the ball where you took relief. So in this case, or in these cases, the player, like I said, must continue with playing the substituted ball, and they must not play the original ball, even if it's found on the course before the end of the 3-minute search time. If a player makes a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball, the player is going to get your
Hey, Kyle?
Yeah.
On that last one.
Yeah.
If the player decided to take stroke and distance and go back to the tee box and placed a ball on the tee, then the ball was found within 3 minutes, they could still go play that ball, because until the player hits the ball off the tee, it's not in play, correct?
Correct, yes. Yep. So yeah, they would have that full 3 minutes, or until they make a stroke at that ball under stroke and distance. So if they just put it on the tee, like you said, they didn't make a stroke, so they would be able to play that ball if it was found, their original ball, if it was found within 3 minutes.
So it's not considered a substituted ball until they hit it.
Until a stroke is made, which 99 times out of 100 it's going to be hit it. But if I whiffed it, that that would be the same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we can fix if there was an error, we can fix it. Or in your example, we find our ball before we put that other one in play. We'd be okay, provided it was within 3 minutes.
Kyle, does that apply to par 5 if you hit your second shot out of bounds and gone back and dropped the ball?
No, it doesn't apply.
Huh?
It's different. If you're in
It's
the field.
different. That's a ball in play, is it not?
Once you drop the ball in fair in general area.
Yep, in the general area, the ball's in play.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So yeah,
What do you say?
that was a good point. Was that when you're going back and stroking distance, it matters if it's stroking distance from the tee or stroking distance in the fairway, or from anywhere in the general area.
Correct.
Once you drop the ball, once it leaves your hands, that ball is in play now. Yep. Yep.
And the only other time is if you're playing from the wrong place, you substitute a ball, and taking relief outside the penalty area, you drop it, it's in play, but now all of a sudden somebody finds your ball and it's 30 yards backwards. You actually are about to play from the wrong place and therefore have to redrop your ball.
Correct. There's that in there as well. So as long as you haven't played and you weren't in the correct area, you would go back and fix that.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. All right. Making a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball. So if you make the stroke, that's going to trigger our penalty. So we're going to get the general penalty. And then in stroke play, the player must play out the hole with the incorrectly substituted ball. In match play, the general penalty is going to be a loss of hole. In a lot of these cases, this multiple rule breaches thing, a lot of cases we're going to have these substitution things that combine with I incorrectly substituted a ball and I played from the wrong place. Well, that's going to go back to this whole 1.3C4, which is going to say that in those cases, 2 + 2 is going to equal 2, not 4, as we're not going to get double dinged for playing from the wrong place and also playing an incorrectly substituted ball. We're just going to get 2 total penalty strokes there. All right. So we got more than one rule done today, which is good. Maybe we'll get like three done next week. Next week we'll cover 7. We'll try to get through 7 to 11, and we'll finish 6.
What's the over?
I think if we get to Rule 10, we'll do a good job. But how much you want to bet, Gene?
I bet a lot.
I got a lot of power up here. I can just keep going through it. Rule 7, Rule 8. Oh, what does it say? Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Quiz is the first thing next week.
Yeah. We'll pick up next week. Appreciate the discussion. It was a good one, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's Mark. One I'm going to research for next week and try to bring back to the group is for Rule 7, searching for your ball and you find it in tall grass within 1 minute. You go to grab a club and return, but you can't locate your ball. Is your ball lost again? And do you have 2 more minutes to find the ball? Or was it you can only find the ball once, and now if you accidentally move the ball in searching for it the second time, it's an automatic 1-stroke penalty because you moved your ball.
I think.
So can you lose your ball more than once?
Well, you
No.
Yeah, I don't. I think it'd be that first scenario that you talked about where you'd have 2 more minutes to find it. It's not necessarily re-lost or whatever. It's just that you have 2 minutes to find it. If you don't find it within 2 minutes, then it would be lost.
Think about that. What if it's
But I think it's good to look into because that scenario does happen from time to time.
Yes,
If you don't put a hat or something down near it.
Right.
Kyle, I'm pretty sure that's what he's gonna find out, what you told him.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, Kyle, that was a good question. I've actually had that happen to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll research and see what I can find between now and next week.
All right. Sounds great, Mark.
Thanks.
Yeah. What I did though in that situation was I gave 3 minutes to find it the second time, which fortunately we found.
Right.